Hey kids, it's Mr. Flyer here, hope you're well, and welcome back to Bike News, my monthly look back at the motorcycle news here in the UK. This time it's for the month of September 2023. Okay, so this time round I've got just 4 papers. For some reason I didn't receive one of my MCNs this month. I don't know why, but anyway, we've got plenty of stories to get through, so grab yourself a brew and let's crack straight on. Alright, the first story here then, speed limit restrictions spark controversy. Now this is something that lots of people have commented to me on. Let me just read you this bit and then we'll have a bit of a chat. So it says here, Wales is set to become the first nation in the UK to introduce a default 20 miles per hour limit on residential and built-up roads, with legislation coming into force on September the 17th. So that's already in. I'm recording this on Monday the 2nd of October to go out on Wednesday. So this has already been up and running for a couple of weeks. It says here it's a bid to reduce pollution and cut the number of collision casualties. In a poll on MCN's Ride 5,000 Miles Facebook group, 94% of 435 respondents said that they did not think introducing the 20 mile an hour speed limit was a good idea. I guess no surprise there, because of course MCN are talking to people that by default are on motorcycles, which, let's face it, are kind of fast things, aren't they? Let's read a bit more here. It says here, in January 2023, this is looking elsewhere, the Scottish Borders Council announced that a permanent 20 mile an hour limit would come into effect across their area, so this is spreading. There are plans to expand this nationally by 2025, so I guess that's in Scotland. London is also chock full of these zones in a bid to get more people to walk, cycle or use public transport. Lowering speeds is one of the most important things we can do to reduce road danger, London's Walking and Cycling Commissioner Will Norman said. Interesting that they've got a walking and cycling commissioner. I wonder if they've got a motorcycling commissioner. I bet they haven't, I don't know, but just speculating. It says here, much like in Wales, this move isn't welcome by all though, with city mayoral candidate Howard Cox telling MCN, I drove to London this morning and I was going through very nicely. I was doing 19 miles an hour looking at my speedo when I should be looking at the road. I was being overtaken by scooters, electric bicycles. It's bloody dangerous. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's all very well, it's not all very well setting a 20 mile an hour limit. I suppose if you're in the urban environment, it's a little bit different, but you are going to get overtaken by cyclists. I got overtaken by a cyclist in the 30 mile an hour limit recently. So it just shows it can be done. And I learnt that cyclists aren't, speed limits don't apply. And I'm not just saying that. Apparently if they get flashed by a camera, well, there's no way of tracking them down because they don't have a number plate, of course. But speed limits don't apply to them. Anyway, since this came in, I've had a number of comments from people on my videos saying that this is a nightmare in Wales. And let's face it, Wales is the motorcycling playground, well, for a bulk of us English people, because it's so easy to get to. If you're in the south of England, where most of the population is, Wales is our kind of default favourite motorcycling destination. So 20 miles an hour, that just seems a bit harsh, doesn't it, to do it blanket? But anyway, we'll see. I haven't been to Wales since this has been introduced. I've done a couple of Wales trips this year and thoroughly enjoyed my time there. I will be going back there again as soon as possible, I hope, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, this is. I hope this isn't the thin end of the wedge. Not good news. That I understand. I sort of understand a safety angle, but 20 miles an hour, it feels like you can walk faster than that, doesn't it? Anyway. Right, next up here, dedication's what you need. Guinness recognised Millyard and Cole's 2-up speed record. Stars of ITV's The Motorbike Show, Henry Cole and Alan Millyard are celebrating their 2-up speed success by being officially recognised by Guinness as the new world record. Now you may remember this story, I mentioned it in last month or the one before's Bike News, that my friends Alan Millyard and Henry Cole have beaten this speed record. Now they've been officially recognised by getting that certificate from Guinness, so that's fantastic. What a couple of nutters. Alan said, the pair are now planning to return next year and hope to break the 200 mile an hour barrier. Millyard said, it's nice to have an ambition and it's more than capable. I had the wrong gearing last time. I geared it to 225 miles an hour at 5,000 RPM. If I geared it for 200 at 5,000, then we would have done it. So Alan's got a plan, and I have absolute confidence that that he will manage to do it. But that is pretty hair-raising. 100 miles an hour on a bike is pretty scary. 100 mile an hour on the back of a bike, very scary. 200 miles an hour, nuts. Now the good news is, I've spoken to Alan about having a ride on the back of the Viper myself. Now I don't want to be going anywhere near 200 miles an hour, but he said we could do it. And I've had a chat to my friend and viewer of the channel, the manager up at Western Airfield, hello Chris if you're watching, who said if we want to do it, he'll let us have the runway to do it as well. So it's just down to me to sort out with Alan when we can do that. We're coming into the sort of bad time of the year now, so it might be next year now or springtime when we get to do it. But hopefully I'll get a ride on the back of the Viper myself, so I can bring you first hand how nuts that feels. Anyway, well done to those two for getting the record, and just take it easy out there. Let's not get too overzealous. Right, next up here, New Bullet seeks target. Royal Enfield are gearing up to reveal a revitalised Bullet range for 2024, with 5 new models being teased online for a reveal on September the 1st, which did in fact happen, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So I'll do no more about the Bullets because I think it's in the next paper, so we'll talk about that then. Right, next up. Italian charisma for less cash. How do the latest twins from revived Moto Morini and Benelli compare to MotoGuzzi's enduring V7? Now, this is one of these multi-bike tests that MCN are so good at. They pitted the MotoGuzzi V7 Special Edition, costing £9,050, against the Benelli Leonchino 800 Trail, £7,999, against the £6,699 Moto Morini Seiemmezzo STR. I have to say, all these bikes look fantastic. I haven't ridden any except for the MotoGuzzi V7, which has a bit too much character for my liking. And I know some people absolutely love MotoGuzzis and the character that they give you, the rock and roll from that V-twin engine. We rode one, or Mrs. Flyer briefly rode on the back of one when we did our recent tour in Tuscany. If you haven't seen that set of videos, go and check those out. It was a brilliant place to ride. Anyway, she went on the back of a MotoGuzzi and she called it a Moto Gutless. So that was her summary of that, but a little bit unfair probably. I know there are massive fans of the MotoGuzzis out there, so I don't mean to cause offence. Anyway, let's see what MCN said, because of course these, although they're badged Italian, I think the MotoGuzzi is still fully Italian, but the others, I think the Benelli and the Moto Morini, are actually Chinese built now, even though there is an Italian element. I think the design and engineering is done in Italy, a bit like the way that Royal Enfield do the build in India, but they're designed now in the UK, bit like that. Anyway, let's have a look at the verdicts. Phil West says, Guzzi has character. Yeah, I would agree here. I really liked all 3 of these supposed Italians, he says. But what I really like most is the bargain but brilliant Seiemmezzo, which is interesting. But with the Benelli's better version of the Kawasaki engine and the Guzzi's scent of authenticity. That's if we could have the ideal bike. But seeing as I can't have that, I'll still take the Seiemmezzo and I'll be more than happy with it. So looking at these, they've given the MotoGuzzi 3 out of 5, the Benelli 3 out of 5, and the Moto Morini, which is the cheapest of the bunch, 4 out of 5. And of course, the problem with these is, although they are great value, particularly the Moto Morini at 6,699, you've got to get your head around the fact that they are built in China. I know whenever I mention these Chinese-built motorcycles, I get all sorts of criticism. I understand the political situation. I know we shouldn't be supporting that and all that caper, but try and buy anything that doesn't have some Chinese components in it these days and you will struggle. And let's not ignore these. The Chinese are coming as far as motorcycles are concerned. We've been here before, haven't we? We know what happened in the 70s with us ignoring Japanese bikes. So I think the Chinese are on the way, whether we like it or not. What would be interesting to know is whether you'd like me to ride any of these, because I think I've now got a way, certainly I've got a way of riding Benellis. I might have a way of riding the Moto Morini as well, I'm not sure. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to have a go on these. I have to say, normally these Chinese built bikes don't excite me that much, but I'm willing to give them a go if you fancy them. So let me know what you think of those anyway. So that was that. That was it for the first paper. Moving on. Okay, next paper here. First story. This splendid looking bike presents itself to us. This is the MV Agusta, I think it's called the Lucky Explorer 9.0, something like that. We'll come to it in 9.5, sorry. Looks great, and what was going to happen was they were going to release a 5.5 version, which was A2 license friendly, which is now on hold. So let me just tell you about this. MV Agusta have told MCN plans for the Lucky Explorer adventure bike range have changed. The 5.5 is on temporary stop. MV Agusta CEO Timur Sardarev confirmed to MCN. Elsewhere, the larger 931 3-cylinder 9.5 Adventurer, which is this one in the picture, I think, yes, is still set to appear. It'll have a limited run of around 500 special editions before mass production begins. The 9.5 production starts from next month, that's October, and it will go on sale from October this month as a model year 2024 bike. Now, I have to say, I think this looks good. It looks a bit like a slightly less tall Africa Twin, doesn't it? Now, I love the looks of the Africa Twin, which is unusual for me because I'm not normally a big fan of Dakar-esque style bikes, but this and the Africa Twin I think look good. But for me, the Africa Twin is just a bit too tall, me being a shorty. If it was shorter, it would work fine. For me, this bike looks a little bit shorter. And I have to say, let's face it, we had all the hype, didn't we, with the new BMW GS reveal last week. And the looks of that bike is very much split opinion, of course. Check out my video on that if you haven't seen it already, but I'm sure you have. There's been loads of coverage. If the new BMW GS had the lights of this on it, then I think they'd be on to a winner, wouldn't they? That new GS, it sounds great on paper. I love everything on paper about it, but the jury is out for me on the looks of it. Maybe it'll grow on me over time, so never say never, and I need to ride it. I'm sure dynamically it's brilliant. But just on looks alone, I prefer the looks of this. I mean, this looks an absolute cracker, doesn't it? So there we are, MV Agusta set to bring this out this month. Let's keep an eye on this this month's news web feeds and so on and see if this one comes out. But I love the paint scheme. I love the rugged looks of it. It just looks like an adventure bike should look, doesn't it? It says here the 950 engine platform has two parts, one adventure and another one for sport, and a different family of products will come from that platform. So expect more triple action from MV Augusta soon. They're like Triumph, are very good at making triple engines, aren't they? And if this adventure bike still has that distinctive triple engine whine, and they don't do that changing it to make it more twin-ish, so it works better off-road like Triumph did, then they might be onto a winner. Triumph, if you remember with the 900, they changed the firing order of the triple, so it doesn't sound so much like a triple anymore, which for me was a step back. I absolutely love the Triumph 900, more so now with the advent of that new GS, I think, in fact. But they just, for me, have spoiled the triple engine character. So maybe Triumph will change that back at some point. Who knows? Anyway, moving on. Here we go. This is the Enfield, the new Bullet that I'd mentioned just now in the other paper. So historic Bullet name returns to Europe in new air-cooled Retro 350 model. Royal Enfield are bringing back the Bullet name to Europe with a new range of air-cooled 350 models based around the existing classic 350 Retro. The Bullet name has been synonymous with Royal Enfield since 1932. What European customers won't get, though, is the full range of Bullets teased online in India last week, which included a Bullet 500. That's interesting. Powering the new Bullet 350 is Enfield's easygoing 349cc air and oil-cooled J-Series engine, which we've seen in the Meteor Classic and Hunter, and it produces 20.2 brake horsepower. Also borrowed from the Classic and the non-adjustable 41mm conventional forks. Where the pair differ most notably is in the looks department, and that's the thing. So I'm a huge fan of the Royal Enfield Classic 350. In fact, it's one of my favourite retro bikes, and if I had just a little bit more room in the garage, I would definitely have one. I love the Classic 350. I need to ride it some more and get to know it a bit better. But that engine is an absolute peach. Great value bike as well. But for me, this Bullet, and this is where I'll be interested in your comments too, it just doesn't do it for me. There's something about it that doesn't look quite right. And I think it's probably the seat. That sort of sculpted seat. It might be comfortable, but it just doesn't float my boat. I guess you could easily get it re-upholstered to change that. But I'm not sure about this. It's got that same, it looks like the front end is very much the same as the Classic 350, which on that bike kind of works. But on this bike, I'm not sure it does. So, I mean, I'm being picky here, and the beauty of the Royal Enfields is they've got such a wide range now of bikes based on their different platforms. You can afford to choose which one you like best. If you put this next to the Classic 350, I'd have the Classic 350 anytime you like. So it's odd, isn't it? I have very little interest in riding the Bullet 350. I can sort of already guess what it'll feel like. It'll ride absolutely beautifully because that engine is a peach. But for me, the looks just don't do it, and I think it's down to that back end, the seat, I think is what does it. Again, really interested in your thoughts on this one. What is it about this bike you like or don't like? If you agree with me, what is it about the styling that means this doesn't quite work? Maybe it's just me being a bit funny. Anyway, it's not for me, that one, whereas the Classic definitely is. Go figure. Funny old world, isn't it? Obviously all subjective, but that's my opinion. Right, moving next. Maeving, do you remember these? So Coventry firm's new RM1S will whisk you up to 65 miles an hour. Now, a few months back, earlier this year, I think it was this year, I got to ride the RM1, the Maeving electric bike, and I really loved its styling, but it was very expensive for what it is. I'll put a link in the corner to that video if you didn't see it. It's well worth watching, if for no other reason than my leather trousers. But I really like the look of the Maeving. I think it's a really nice sort of combination of modern and retro. Well, they've taken on board the fact that it was a bit slow, and they've done some stuff to it. Let me read you what it says here. Meet the Maeving RM1S, the new, faster, more powerful version of the Coventry firm's battery-powered RM1 city bike, first revealed in 2021. Capable of acclaimed 65 miles an hour, much more useful. So it's differentiated from the standard RM1, which only did 45 miles an hour, not quite enough in my opinion, thanks to its upgraded rear hub motor, promising a peak output as high as 14.1 brake horsepower. Deliveries of the new S will begin as of March 2024, so next year, and it'll cost you £7,495, which I think might even be the same price as what the original RM1 was. So this is just, it looks like a very useful up in speed on the bike for not a lot more money, if any. It says here, tipping the scales at 130 kilograms with batteries in place, the RM1S is designed to ride and feel just like the original machine. Providing a little extra stopping power is a 300mm front disc up from the 240mm. Now, I have to say I didn't find the brakes on the old bike bad, but if they're going to upgrade them, that's absolutely great. It does look amazing, this bike. I'm a big fan of bikes that are built in this country, so built in Coventry, thumbs up. I wish these guys the best of luck, and I look forward maybe to riding this new version as well and just seeing if that new bit of speed is noticeable. I'm not a huge fan of electric bikes. I've said it before here on Bike News and on other videos. When it comes to enthusiast machines, the sort that probably you and I like riding, the sort that you might do a tour in Wales or across Europe or whatever on, this isn't the bike. But if you're an urban commuter or a hipster, dare I say, this one is right up the street, up your street, in the town. This is brilliant. The range is absolutely fine. And now it's got a top speed of 65 miles an hour. You know, a little bit of dual carriageway if you have to use it on the way to work. Could be doable, couldn't it? But anyway, we'll wait and see what it's actually like next year. Maybe I'll get a ride of that. That would be fantastic. All right, moving on. Worth the wait, Norton. Oh, this is a bit of a controversial brand now, as far as I'm concerned. You may remember I rode the Norton. Can't remember the name of it now, but my review wasn't that complimentary about the bike, whereas every other review I've seen of that bike was. Again, I'll stick a link in the corner to that one if you like. Anyway, a bike I am interested in seeing is this one, because this is the new V4 SV, which has been completely reworked since old Norton did it. So it says here it's got 185 brake horsepower at 12,500 RPM, and it weighs 193 kilograms. For me, what's not so good is it costs £44,000. So it does look nice. I love the idea of Norton. I love British bikes, as I mentioned before. I love the Norton brand, but it's got to be pretty darn good, isn't it, at 44 grand? Let's see what the verdict is here. Well, here we go. John Hurry, the first thing, the headline here on his comments are, not 100% convinced. If you're asking 44 grand for a bike, it needs to be very special indeed. And although the Norton is good, I'm not 100% convinced it's outstanding. This is kind of what I was alluding to just now, I think. Despite being thoroughly reworked, the V4 SV still contains a few irritations and penny-saving measures that you wouldn't expect on a bike costing this much. And that was a complaint I had on the bike that I rode, that for a bike that was costing premium money, that one was around 16 grand, but it's still top end for a naked bike. Things like the switchgear was a bit flimsy and the brake reservoir, things like that. Anyway, let's see what John was saying here. He says, with more than enough for road riding, let's read that again. I made a cock up. So, despite being thoroughly reworked, the V4 SV still contains a few irritations and penny-saving measures that you wouldn't expect on a bike costing this much, and its performance and arguably tech level, while more than enough for road riding, aren't up to modern headline-stealing Halo product standards. I mean, this bike's going up against things like the new Panigale, isn't it, and the M1000RR. I mean, it's got to be special, isn't it? Sure, the V4 SV looks and rides well, but I can't help feel that both the market and Norton's reputation have shifted since the bike was first conceived, and at 44,000 the V4 SV seems overpriced. That's a shame, isn't it? I mean, it is a lovely looking bike, but it's got some serious competition on its hands, isn't it? The Panigale V4R, as I said, the M1000RR comes in at 30,940, 10 grand, well, 14 grand less than this, or if my maths was better, maybe closer to 13. Would you rather have an M1000RR, or would you take the Norton V4 SV? I think I know which one I'd have. Sorry, Norton. All right, moving on swiftly. Retro look XSR900 is the future. You may remember last Bike News, I think it was the last one, we talked about this, which to me looks absolutely fantastic. I am without a doubt a retro bike fan, and the XSR900 is Yamaha's kind of entry in the retro bike market at the moment. And I'm not a big fan of the XSR900 as it stands. I love the way it rides. I love that triple engine. It's absolutely great. It's comfortable. It goes well, rides beautifully. But it just doesn't look quite right to me. But you can now buy this kit to make it look a bit more old school, and I think this kit looks absolutely fan-flipping-tastic. I love it. It says here, Yamaha's DC40 concept got people excited about the prospect of a road-oriented sports bike using the CP3 engine, that's that triple motor, but it's just a show bike, so you'll have to build one for yourself if you want one. That's an easy matter now thanks to Velocity Moto and their new 900F makeover for 2022 onwards XSR 900s. You can buy a ready-to-fit kit if you already have the bike, or buy a brand new XSR with a conversion completed from selected Yamaha dealers, complete with a warranty. I love the sound of that you can actually buy this from Yamaha dealers. They'll put the kit on for you. It says here, if you're a liability with hand tools, that's definitely me, you can simply hand over your bike for the conversion, fittings 650 quid, and order a new one with the package. It costs, if you want one of these, 13,460. I assume that's fitted, bought from a Yamaha dealer, so 13.5 grand will get you one of these splendid retro looking sports bikes. I paid for my Kawasaki Z900 RS, which is a lovely retro bike with all the bells and whistles. I think I paid 13.8 for that. So when you compare the two, which would you rather have, this or the Kawasaki? And I'm starting to think, maybe I might have preferred this. I don't know. Not that I don't like the Kawasaki. I love that bike, and there'll be more on that bike over the next weeks and months on the channel. So stick around, stay tuned. If you're a fan of the Kawasaki Z900 RS, I'll be riding that bike a lot more. But this looks fantastic, doesn't it? And yeah, a serious contender, I think. I love sports bikes, me. But one of the issues I had, and the reason why I recently sold my Panigale, was that it was just so uncomfortable to ride. It didn't encourage me to ride it very often. This, the XSR 900, is not uncomfortable at all. This, you get all the fun and looks of a sports bike, but without that back-breaking comfort situation. I really like the look of that. So, yeah, makes you think that, doesn't it? All right, next up. Still with me? Hope so. Right, we've only got 2 stories in this paper for some reason. Not too much happening this week, obviously. Twin-cylinder triple threat. BMW aim for the middleweight adventure top spot with advanced new F800GS and F900GS. Yeah, a few weeks ago, before the new big GS was announced, they came out with the new versions of the F800 and F900. Caused quite a stir. Done some nice styling on these, I think, actually. These have remained with more conventional looking GS type headlights. They're still asymmetric, but slightly restyled, and I think they look good. I wasn't a big fan of the F800 and F900 GSs in the past, because to me they felt top heavy and even harder to manhandle than the big GS, so I kind of steered away. But let's see what the changes are. BMW's R1300 GS isn't the only new adventure bike coming from German brand in 2024, with a radically different F900 GS and distance munching F900 GS Adventure and A2 friendly F800 GS also arriving to replace the current F850 and F750. With me, it's very confusing, these naming conventions that BMW use, because all these bikes have the same engine. All 3 machines, here we are, will feature an 895cc 8-valve, so they're all actually 900cc, nearest damn it. They all feature an 8-valve parallel twin using a 270-degree firing order with different states of tune and twin balance shafts to cut down vibes. In base specs, the bikes come in at $9,995 for the F800 GS, $12,350 for the F900 GS Adventure. But again, like all BMWs, once you spec them up with the things you need, they're going to cost a lot more than that. The F900 GS has shed a claimed 14 kilograms, good number, bringing the weight down to 219 kilograms ready to roll, which sounds quite good, doesn't it? But, you know, like me, it's not just about the headline weight, is it? It's where it sits and how top heavy it feels, so I'd be interested to try one of these. The F900S can also be equipped with an enduro pack that consists of a full set of adjustable titanium nitride coated upside down forks, fully adjustable century mounted rear shock, handlebar risers and an M endurance chain. You can add BMW's dynamic electronic suspension, you get LED lighting, TFT display, keyless ignition, don't bother with that, and the SOS emergency quick call system too. So they've just basically given them a thorough upgrade. But nice looking bikes. But yeah, perhaps I need to get onto BMW and have a little ride again on one of these, because I haven't ridden one of these for a lot of years. So I don't want to, you know, say they're not for me without actually riding them. So let's put that one on ice. I'll have a little chat to BMW maybe early next year, and maybe in the spring I can have a go on one of these and see how they're doing these days. But they certainly look all right. Right, and last in this paper, let's go retro. 3 takes on the Scrambler theme, but which is best? Now, I love a Scrambler, me, possibly my favourite sort of genre, which is why I took my Royal Enfield Interceptor and Scramblerised that. I just think it's a great look when you get some, you know, high-level exhaust, chunky tyres, that sort of thing. I think it's a great looking, well, great look for a retro. Anyway, they've got the Ducati Scrambler Full Throttle coming in at £11,161 against the $9,795 Triumph Scrambler 900, my favourite bike of these 3, I think, and the Fantic Caballero, the Scrambler 700. Now, I haven't ridden the new Ducati Scrambler, I've ridden the older version, so I need to get that sorted. I've been watching Freddie Dobbs' videos on that, though, and I know he's not a fan of it for touring, but otherwise he likes the bike, and I think it looks great, although I find, personally, the little X on the headlight a little bit naff. But there we go. I love the Triumph Scrambler 900. I just think that looks great. If a bit heavy for riding off-road, I found out when I rode it, or the older version anyway. And the Fantic Caballero, I've only ridden the smaller version. I need to ride the 700, and my friends down at Crazy Horse Customs, or up at Crazy Horse Customs in Bury St Edmunds have got one and said that I can ride it, so I might well do that next year. So I will get to ride these. What's the verdict that John Urry has come up with? None of them are perfect, he says here. I was genuinely excited about riding the Fantic, as I love the Yamaha CB2 motor, and I've always found the smaller capacity Caballero models hugely charming, with bags of spirit and style, but with bigger capacity Caballero just misses the mark. The price is right, as is the impressive spec, but where the smaller bikes can get away with being a bit quirky, the bigger bike feels like it isn't quite the finished article due to its odd handling, especially head-to-head with the Ducati. So I've read a couple of negative reviews on the bigger Caballero. I think they were were both in MCN. It may have been both John Arry, I don't know. So I do need to investigate that myself and see whether it's the same, because on paper that combination of the Yamaha engine and the Fantic Caballero sounds great, doesn't it? What is harder to swallow is the Ducati's price, John goes on to say. I can't see how they can justify over 11k for the FT. I'm sorry, it's just not worth that much. I buy the base model Icon for 10,161 every time. Which leaves the Triumph sadly forgettable. Oh dear. The Triumph is pleasant enough and hard to fault, but it feels and responds like a T100. It's competent rather, but it lacks the pizzazz compared to the Ducati and the Fantic. Fair enough. Okie dokie then. So he's given them all 3 out of 5, so hard to split between the three. And he's basically disappointed with them all, he says. I mean, you're either a fan of these sorts or you're not, aren't you? They're not serious off-roaders. They're all probably too heavy for that. But again, for me, just looking at the pictures here, I love the look of the Triumph Scrambler. I'm keen to try the new Ducati Scrambler. I rode the bigger 1100 version a few years back out in Italy on a Tuscany motorcycle tour trip, and I really love the bigger Scrambler. This new small bike has been completely reworked though. I saw it at the Ducati Museum earlier this year, and it does look completely different to the old Scrambler, so I must give it another crack. When I first tried the original Scrambler, it was years and years ago. It was a very early video on my channel. I just found it a bit too toy-like and didn't like it, but this now looks, I think it looks great, so I want to give it a go. And the Fantic, as I say, I will give that a go maybe in the springtime. Alright, still with me. We'll get on to parish notices in a minute with all the news about what's coming up on the channel, but first a few more stories from the latest MCN. It says here, watch out Triumph. CFMoto target Triumph and MV with sporty 675cc triple. So now the Chinese CFMoto, which is probably the most, when I say serious brand, I mean they're the brand that makes the bigger capacity, probably better engineered bikes, and the one that I think is most likely to make inroads into Western markets. They've now developed a 675cc triple, so that's going to be interesting. It says here, a shrink rack plastic disguise hid its styling details, but after 3 years of development, the firm's first 3-cylinder machine is clearly very close to being production ready, and is by far their sportiest bike yet. In terms of performance, the company say that the 675 SR is good for more than 73.7 foot-pounds per litre of torque, which works out at least as 50 foot-pounds from the 675cc. That's on the money in comparison to Triumph's old Daytona 675 and MV Augusta's F3 675. Both bikes that, you know, are kind of no more, aren't they? So it's interesting that they're producing this bike now. It'll be interesting to see how it sells. And under the shrink wrap, it's hard to see what it looks like, but the shape of it looks all right, doesn't it? Interesting. It says here it's expected to be followed by a more comprehensive unveiling later this year, and production looks primed to commence in 2024. The 675cc triple is the first homegrown Chinese 3-cylinder engine, with patents suggesting it has a 120-degree crank and a balancer shaft. Really fascinated to see how this one does. Again, are you excited to see this? It may be that I'm able to get a ride on this when it's actually launched, so I'm quite interested to have a go. I must admit, I'm a fan of a 3-cylinder, and since I sold my Street Triple, I haven't ridden a 3-cylinder bike for a while, so yeah, maybe it's time to get another one in my stable. Don't think it's going to be a sports bike though. Who knows? We'll see. Next up, Clash of the Titans. How relevant are the 200 plus bhp M1000RR and Honda Blade RR-R on the road? Well, I've got my own views on this. As I said before, I love sports bike. I love that these bikes exist. I love the way that both these bikes look, and I suspect, right, I've ridden the Fireblade RR-R, but not the M1000RR. But having ridden the standard BMW sports bike, I'm sure it's absolutely fantastic. The problem with them is they are great on the road. The electronics help them out. You can ride them quite successfully on the road. You know, they're quite easy to ride. In fact, they're very forgiving bikes, but they're still quite uncomfortable if you're of a certain age like me. They're very expensive, and the thing is, they've got so much power and untapped potential. If, like me, you've got absolutely no self-control whatsoever, the temptation to give them the beans on the road is massive. So for me, I wouldn't have one, because they're just I'm gonna lose my license, or worse, in a very quick manner. If you're a track day fan, absolutely go for it. But yeah, on the road, for me, they don't make sense. Let's see what MCN have said. Now, this is Phil West. Laugh out loud power, he says, and I agree. I mean, they're incredible. You hardly dare give them full beans on the road, because they're just so performant. It's incredible. They look lovely though, don't they? Anyway, last year MCN speed tested the Fireblade SP at 144 miles per hour in second gear. Here we see the problem. That might be a great basis for a TT winner, but it also says everything about how these track-targeted superbikes have outgrown British roads. Completely agree with Phil here. You have to admire the engineering and quality, absolutely. The BMW comes out best. It's the most striking, most show-off, and has the most spec. It's even the most comfortable and tractable, but it's also the most expensive by far. So the BMW's 30,940, so 31 grand. The BMW 24 grand. Sorry, the Honda 24 grand. Yeah, expensive bikes, and you know, if you've got money to burn and you just want a nice collection, or indeed you're a track day fan, then these are the ones to go for. But not a great deal of relevance to me, somebody that just likes to go out and ride his bike on a sunny summer's evening, or going on tour for a ride. So yeah, glad that exists, but yeah, not for me, unfortunately. Right, last story before we move on to parish notices. Couldn't help point out this one. This is the BMW K1200 LT. I mention it because I think it looks pretty cool, and it's a bike I never knew existed. Now, apparently it was around from 1998 to 2009. I didn't really get into motorcycling until 2010, 2011, or this time round anyway. So it was before my time. It says here, an impressive machine that comes loaded with the kind of tech and comfort treats that makes ticking off the miles effortless. It's great to up. It has spacious integral panniers. For a hefty bike, it actually handles well. If you want to take a few weeks off to explore Europe, the LT is the perfect companion, and better still, it's reasonably priced in the used market. It says here you can pick one up from between £2,500 and £5,000. That is a lot of bike for the money, isn't it? I think it looks great. So if you can find one in good nick, well worth doing. And just goes to show, as I've said many times here on the channel, you don't have to spend an absolute fortune on a brand new bike to have an excellent machine in your stable, do you? Right, next then. Parish notices. What is coming up on the channel in the next month? Well, I've got loads of treats for you. A few unusual things lined up. I'll let you know what they are here. So first up, next video you see, I last get to ride the new Suzuki GSX8S, and I'll pose the question, is it worth £1,000 more than the Honda Hornet? So if you're interested in that bike, that's coming up as the next video on the channel on Saturday. Watch out for that one. After that, something a little bit different on the 11th, which is the Wednesday. I've got something which I'm calling Making Motorcycle Music. Now, basically what this is a viewer, Jez, contacted me, and he works at the London College of Music, and he's doing something called sonic reconceptualization. Long story short, he basically makes music out of the sounds from my motorbike. So a little bit different, that video. Stick around for that one. As I say, that's coming on the 11th of October, so I think you're going to enjoy that one. It's something a bit different. Next, on the 14th of October, I'm riding the Indian Sport Chief. Went up to Crazy Horse in Bury St Edmunds last month and got to ride that. That's the bike that's basically, it's a cruiser, but it's got a sports bike fairing on the front. And when I first saw it, I thought, not sure that's the bike for me, but have a watch of that review, see if you agree with my summation of that one. Next up, Honda Transalp. That's coming up on the 18th of October. Again, one of those Dakar-esque bikes, so not necessarily a bike I would naturally gravitate to, but I'd heard so many good things about the bike, I had to ask Honda if I could have a go on one. So that's the Honda Transalp coming up on the 18th. Then, again, a departure for the channel. Do not feel I'm not going to become a car channel, but as I was up at Crazy Horse, they offered me the chance to have a drive in the lightest Caterham 7 yet. It's called the 170. So I had a drive in that, and very, very interesting car. Really enjoyed it. It's interesting because of course it's lightweight. It actually weighs less than the bike I rode to Crazy Horse on, my Goldwing. It's got a 660cc triple Suzuki engine in it, and it's just who. Anyway, that one's coming up on the 21st of October. Followed by a review on the 25th of October, the much requested Ninja 1000 SX. It's a long time since I rode the Ninja 1000. It used to be called the, well, it used to be called something else, didn't it? But anyway, a proper old school touring bike. Rode this up at On Your Bike, so that's coming on the 25th of October. I've got the CL500 from Honda on the 28th of October. That one, again, well, wait and see my review of that one. 1st of November, Triumph or Trauma, garage fun. You know me, not an expert with the spanners. I've been spannering on my Speed Twin and fixing some Hepco and Becker panniers, which I think look fantastic. But anyway, see what fun I had trying to get those installed on the 1st of November. On the 4th of November, I'm actually, to treat this one as a mini tour series. I get to ride for the first time a genuine Vespa, and to bring you some sunshine in November, I actually do it on Mallorca with Mrs. Flyer on the back. So that's a one episode tour video, if you like, on the Vespa 300. That's coming up on the 4th of November. And then bike news is going to be a little bit late next month. That's coming on the 8th of November. So stick out for that on the 8th of November. Don't send all the messages saying what's happened to bike news. It is coming. It's just a little bit late. Okay, so sorry about that. So that's what's coming up on the channel. Don't forget, there are only 82 shopping days to go until Christmas. So if you're struggling for a present present for your loved one or the motorcycling nut in your family, then don't forget to check out my website and my merch there. So go to www.themissendonflyer.com and there's all sorts of stuff that you can buy there, including things like mugs, keyrings, shirts like this, which I absolutely love, all kinds of stuff there. Do go and check it out. I've got a new neck buff as well, 15 quid that. It's kind of a premium quality thing. You will have seen it on many of my videos. Go and check out my website if you're stuck for a Christmas present for the male in your family. And then last but not least, must just say thank you to you for watching as ever. A huge thanks to my patrons and channel members for making this whole thing possible. Without you guys, I couldn't do it. And of course, my channel sponsors as well. So thank you everybody for sticking with me. Thanks for watching. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Mr. Flyer. Cheerio.